Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's another week of the Health Wealth podcast. We're back for another chat. Me and Barry are going to be kind of carrying on with what we've been speaking about the last few times, and what we're covering. So we're going to speak a bit on fasting and the benefits of that today, and a couple of other things about gut health and intestinal permeability. So good to see you again, Barry. How are you doing?
Yeah, great to see you, Ryan, and glad to be on as always, and looking forward to another episode. We've got some great topics following on from the previous, an extension of previous episode, which was really insightful, and we're going to cover them today, and I'm sure the viewers and the listeners will find it very beneficial. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, hopefully that's our aim, is to benefit people. And that the subjects that we're talking about recently are that really they're too in depth to cover in just one podcast. We don't want to go on for hours and hours. So we'll kind of break it up into a few and talk on different bits about it. So obviously we spoke before about cancer and the causes of cancer, and about how fasting can be used as such a beneficial thing for it. So we were going to kind of talk a little bit more today on some of the processes of fasting, of why that's helpful, some of the science behind it, and obviously one of the main things behind it is autophagy, which is a very important process in the whole fasting. So it's basically, autophagy means self-eating, is what it translates to specifically. It's basically a basic overview is what your body basically picks up all the old cells, breaks them down, and makes them into new, fresh ones. That's the really basic overview. So, I mean, Barry, do you want to give a little bit of insight into what happens through autophagy and the benefits of it?
Yeah, so autophagy is something that I've started to learn more about recently, especially after my journey in the last year or two, from actually probably more than that, the last 2 or 3 years, I would say, but specifically the last 12 months, going from your standard 3 meals and snacking in between to a very robust fasting way of life now, with between 20 and 21 hours, 6 days a week, and five days a week. Normally I try to aim for the 6, but autophagy plays a big part in that, because it's as you mentioned, your body's processes are reusing old and damaged cell parts. So the cells are like the basic building blocks of your tissue and your organs. So each cell has multiple parts that keep it functioning over time, and over time that they can become damaged and defunct. So autophagy is like a natural self-preservation mechanism whereby the body removes the damaged and dysfunctional parts of the cell and recycles other parts towards something called cellular repair. So it's basically a way of the body cleaning out the damaged cells, and in order for it to like regenerate and create newer, healthier cells to replace them. So the actual meaning of the word autophagy is actually twofold. So the auto part means self, and the phagy part means eat. So it's almost like self-eating. So if you will, so it's literally like your body is self-devouring, which actually doesn't sound like the nicest thing, but and it sounds like something that you don't want to happen within your body, but actually it's very beneficial to your overall health, because autophagy is it's an evolutionary self-preservation mechanism, and the purpose is for it, is to remove the debris and regulate itself back to optimal smooth function, which benefits your overall health. So it's basically clearing out all those old cells, regenerating them, and that has multiple health benefits. And one of the things that one of the biggest benefits that autophagy has, one of the biggest benefits that it enforces in your body is something that, you know, all humans would like: anti-aging. So there's anti-aging principles that are aligned with autophagy, and it's basically it's best known as the body's own way of turning the clock back, and by creating younger cells and regenerating existing ones. And it's actually something that I've started to notice just by doing fasting. I just feel a lot more. I feel a lot more revitalized, and you know that, like, the quality of my skin is, you know, I feel as good as ever, and it's very much the best way and the most natural way to do it. I know there's obviously a lot of products and treatments that you can get, but this is the most natural way, the healthiest way, the most efficient way. And actually, it costs absolutely nothing to do it. All it costs is your discipline and some time to educate yourself on it. And I actually feel that is the best way. So, you know, some other benefits obviously include, you know, removing toxic proteins from the cells that are attributed to some neurodegenerative diseases such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, so it would reduce the chances of you contracting that later in life. Provides energy and building blocks for cells that will still benefit from repair and prompt regeneration. So there's a lot of news, a very nuanced subject, but they're just that's a background of autophagy and some of the benefits that you can gain from that. And one of the best ways to initiate that process is through the process of fasting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. So essentially, our cells are cannibals, eating themselves. But yeah, it's true, and I always like to kind of use analogies for stuff to try and make it simple for people to understand. And being I work within the building trade, and one of the things to look at it is that if someone bought a really rundown house to redo, they would be much better knocking the house down and restarting to build new, put new foundations in, start everything from new. If they tried to kind of botch the new onto the old, it's not going to be as good. And that's the same with our body. We don't want to be building on top of these cells which are damaged and old, and you know, we don't want to build on that. We want to start clean slate, clear everything out, start nice, new, clean, and build our cells on that and our tissues, and that's going to grow properly. So that's kind of the way we have to look at it, that every now and again you just need to clean everything out, start again. And as you say, fasting is the way to do that. And the issue with the way that most people most people eat today, is that we don't give our body any chance to do that. We're eating, like, people are eating every few hours nowadays. And especially, you know, if they're eating high carb as well, which is spiking everything in your body, and you don't get any real chance for your body to do those processes. There's a very small amount of autophagy going on all the time, but to really get the benefits of it, you need to be fasted for a certain amount of time. I mean, there's varying research, but I think around 14 to 16 hours is really the minimum amount of time fasted to get some real benefit from it. They did research with, I believe it was in type 2 diabetics, and they did some research and found that patients who did either, so there was kind of two methods they did which worked really well. One was if patients fasted for 24 hours a couple times a week, and maybe just ate normally the other days, or if they just had like a 16-hour fasting window every day, they got really, really good results in improved insulin sensitivity. And you know, that's another thing which is kind of linked in with fasting as well as the autophagy, is that when you're fasted, obviously we talk about insulin a lot. When you eat, insulin spikes, and that's fine, but not if it's all the time, then it causes issues. But when we're not eating and insulin comes down, then glucagon comes up, which is like the opposite hormone to insulin. and we get a lot of benefits from that. So that's another thing that helps with the autophagy. So the glucagon coming up actually activates the autophagy. So the lower insulin comes, the more it activates it. It activates ketogenesis, so we can start producing ketones. Obviously, with like the ketogenic diet and the way we eat, we want to be in ketosis because that allows us to run on fat and ketones and not carbohydrates. It also activates fat use and inhibits fat storage. So if you're looking to lose weight, intermittent fasting is a brilliant method because your body starts to use the fat and doesn't lock it away because it's using it for energy. It's sending it around the body to be used, and it's not going to be just stored away. Whereas if you're spiking carbs all the time, that fat gets locked away instantly. So there's lots of benefit from that, and it activates the liver to not store glycogen and to use it. So there's a ton of benefits from us being fasted, and as we said there, and as you said with yourself and your personal example, it's not, you don't have to be going 3-4 days fasting. Intermittent fasting works brilliantly. For some people might, like we saw with the diabetes research, maybe you want to eat 3 meals a day for a couple of days and fast 24 hours, and that seems to work okay as well. But intermittent fasting every day, just giving your body that chance every day to just clean out and start again. And yeah, it's, there's tons of benefits that we get from it. And autophagy is one of them, and obviously a balanced insulin and glucagon levels is another.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the benefits and the autophagy brings, because when you are fasting, you are giving your body a chance to do all of these other processes: cell regeneration, clearing out the gut, burning, and when you're on specifically a ketogenic or carnivore diet, then you're getting a lot of your body's in a diet that's high in fat, which is good. Then your body's burning that for energy. Whereas if you're putting in a lot of carbs, then your body is going to the carbs to burn that, which is it's producing the glucose, but your body already makes the glucose, so it's very inefficient. So the benefits are huge, and it's important not to overwhelm your body with external workload. It gives your body a chance to break down and focus on its own health and repair. And the calorie sources causes your body to shift its metabolic pathways as well. So the pathways are very important, and that's what I was saying about your body using the fat for energy instead of the glucose that's derived from carbohydrates. So that's why a diet high in fat and protein is very important, and keep the carbohydrates to a minimum. But I still see so much stuff about just in the fitness community and just the stuff that's out there and on the mainstream about getting in those carbs before the gym workout. I mean, it really is so amateur. It's the body does not need that at all. If you just create the conditions for your body to burn what is there, it will give you the energy to work out. And being constantly in a fed state, you don't ever create the conditions for your body to do these processes. So, like when the body's low on sugar through fasting or ketosis, it brings positive stress. So the positive stress wakes up the survival repairing mode, which is essentially what will benefit your long-term health. And I like the analogy that you used about the buildings and how to all the internal contents that need broken down or shifted out and start afresh, because storytelling is very important. I think a lot of people could relate to stories when you're explaining this type of information. But another one that I like to use is for those who hoard as well. It's kind of similar, people who hoard junk, and the stuff is everywhere. It's messy. It's depressing to look at. It's inefficient. It's unproductive. Clear a lot of that out. You know, a lot of the stuff that you don't need, clear it out or use it. You know, instead of just keeping it there, use it for, you know, other purposes, or clear it out and be minimalist about it. You know, it's just in your house, just be more minimalist. It's just a lot nicer to look at. It's a lot tidier, and it's the same with your body. You know, minimalism is key, and that is what that is essentially what fasting is about. It's about giving your body, using what's there, being efficient, and giving your body a chance to initiate all these other processes. And you know, that the anti-aging one is crucial. That's been proven. That is something that everybody would like, and that everyone would, you know, that everyone would be for. And those who choose to try and discipline themselves and educate themselves to do a bit of fasting, just that 16 hours, it's not going to cause, I know everybody's body's a little bit different, and some people are, you know, lacking in certain things compared to others. There's nuances in every case, but you know, at the very least, sound health advice is 16 hours will not disrupt anything or have any negative consequences. Like that's the key time. As you said before, it's you're literally sleeping for 8 hours, so it's just 4 hours on each side, and the only thing that you have to do is just manage those hunger pangs, which with some discipline. And you know, I use sparkling water and coffee to begin with, but now I don't even get them. It will start the process of autophagy and ketosis.
Yeah, there's basically no downside to implementing some intermittent fasting into your day-to-day routine. Even, I think we said this before when we was talking about it, even if you just decided to start with doing intermittent fasting, let's say 3 days a week, you know, even just that to begin with, and then as you get used to it, you can do more. But you know, there's basically no downside to it, and it's you know, so worthwhile doing for your health. Another, while we're talking analogies, another kind of analogy to think of is, let's just say that you've got a car. Let's say you're a mechanic, you understand cars, and you've got a car, and every single day you maintain that car, change the oil, clean everything out, you know, check over everything. That car is going to run perfectly. And compare that to someone else who has no clue about cars. They're driving it every day. They're never checking the tire pressure. They're never checking the oil. They're never doing anything. That car is a lot more likely to break down than the one where the mechanic is making it pristine every day. And that's basically what you're doing. If you're allowing your body to do these processes every single day, you're basically keeping your body in pristine condition. And obviously, as we said, as you alluded to there, you need to eat the right foods around it. I mean, if you're fasting for 16 hours, brilliant, and then you go and eat a load of rubbish in 8 hours, you're kind of undoing the benefits. If you're eating the right foods and you're fasting, that's a big step forward in maintaining your health and your long-term health, as you said, for longevity and anti-aging. And one of the things we touched on as well of weight loss. And one of the things that actually autophagy does is it actually prevents skin sag. Because if you're fasting when you're losing weight, your body will break down and reuse your skin cells. And you know where you see people like on The Biggest Loser or whatever, and they lose that massive amount of weight really quick, doing all that exercise and whatever, and they've got this massive saggy belly or whatever.
Yeah.
If you lose weight through fasting, you actually will not have that.
Yeah.
Your body will, your skin will shrink with your body, and you will not have the stretch marks and all the big saggy skin. And there's lots of people who have lost weight that way and by fasting who can prove that. And there's of course the example we spoke about before of the guy in Scotland who fasted for over a year and he did not have saggy skin. His skin returned. He was morbidly obese and his skin returned to size with him. So the benefits of it are just, you know, that you could just keep going all day with it. And it's just that maintenance. Like I say, even just a couple days a week of that intermittent fasting, reaching that 16-hour window. As you said, it's easy. You're asleep for most of it. You're only actually missing one meal. You're only missing breakfast. Yeah. And then you can have a big, massive lunch, a big, massive dinner. You've got a couple of hours. before your bed where you're fasting, let your food digest, and then, you know, in the morning, a couple of hours, and then lunch, you're back to eating. It's not hard. And I would encourage everyone to try and implement that, because there's no real downside and the benefits are you know, crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you know, I watched the it was a clip on YouTube. I think it was Michaela Peterson, Jordan Peterson's daughter, who was on Piers Morgan, explaining how she had, even at a very young age, health problems with her energy and, you know, her skin, and she was on multiple medications, and, you know, all the doctors were saying try this and try that. They were trying to find the right formula in terms of what medications and pills she should take. And
yeah, I think it was rheumatoid arthritis was what she had.
That's right.
Yeah,
Rheumatoid arthritis. That's right. And she just took it upon herself to completely change her diet. Now she only eats pretty much steak, pretty much, which is, you know, one of the most nutritionally dense foods that you can have, you know, 3 times a day. So I don't. She would probably do I would assume the 16 hours, but the fact that she's just eating steak alleviated and eradicated all her health problems, all her ailments. She's full energy. She's looking, there's brightness and vitality in her complexion and her energy levels. It completely resolved everything, you know, and no need for any medication now. So that just shows, you know, the power of diet and showing discipline, eating at the right times, and, you know, maintaining that, you know, because the benefits are absolutely worth the effort. And you soon get to a point where, you know, it doesn't take much effort at all. You know, everybody, I mean, I love steak. Everyone, a lot of people are in meat, they love steak, don't they? It's delicious. So eating it all day, every day, is probably not the most interesting, but which she did alluded to, that is difficult. There's a lack of variety there, but the benefits that she gets from sticking to that outweigh the negatives in terms of lack of variety and having to be very sort of stringent with it. Because hard delving into other foods that are going to mess up those processes again. Sure, it would taste good and it would feel good at the time, but it's very much a case that the juice is not worth the squeeze in that aspect. So she's maintained that, and, you know, that's just a great story.
Yeah, definitely. I've spoken about her story before on the podcast. It's amazing, as you say, a brilliant representation. And people say about, you know, it's restrictive. Like, she literally eats steak, salt, and water. But what's more restrictive is being chronically depressed, in chronic pain from rheumatoid arthritis, you say terrible skin, completely messed up hormonally as well. You know, she's since doing it, she's been able to have kids as well. Like, how is just eating steak all day more restrictive than that? It's not. You have to put it into perspective. She now has a life. She's happy. She's healthy. Okay, she can only eat steak. Like you say, that doesn't sound too bad to me, although it could get a little bit little bit repetitive. Yeah, okay, I'll understand. It could get a bit repetitive, but she's got a life. Before that, she did not have a life. She was a mess. By the age of, I think, 15, she'd had to have 2 joint replacements. There was going to be tons more on the way throughout her life that she was going to have. To say she was chronically depressed, all these issues, and by just eating steak, she's eradicated them all. So do you really think that it's that much of a struggle for her to just eat steak? You know, it's
small price to pay.
Exactly, it is. Like, people are looking at it like, you know, it's one of the mentality and the mindset that people have nowadays, that we're far too comfortable. We have all these comforts, and you're like, oh, I wouldn't want to give up that comfort for that. Well, if you were in her position and you were suffering with what she was suffering with, you probably would be happy to give up some other comforts to get your life back. And she said, I listened to her speak before, and she said that kind of she'd done an elimination diet and began to remove more and more foods to get down to it. And she said that now and again she would try to put another food in, and if she just once eaten another food, she would be a wreck for 3 to 4 weeks. It's not even like feeling rough the next day.
Yeah.
She was like, for weeks, she would be a mess. So, luckily, everyone else should count themselves fortunate that they're not in as bad a position as she was. But why not start to implement the things now so that you don't end up that bad? If you end up in a position that bad and you have to be as extreme as that, it's a bit harder. You could start now implementing intermittent fasting, start eating the right foods, get your protein and fats in, and eating more meat. And you might be able to still eat a small amount of carbs if you want to and stay healthy if you start now. But if you're going to carry on eating rubbish, eventually you're going to reach a point where your health is so bad that you have to either do something as extreme as she has to, or accept being unhealthy and in pain for the rest of your life. And there's a lot of people living like that.
There is, and it's incredibly time consuming as well if you don't make those sacrifices early on. If you make the sacrifices and put that into place right now, then it takes minimal effort and time to keep things ticking over, because you've got the foundations, the processes, and you know what to eat and when to eat, and that will buy you so much time in the future to live, a productive, exciting, adventurous life, or whatever life is that you want. But you can't live that if the vessel is flawed and if the vessel is dysfunctioning. And by vessel, I'm talking about your body, because you've only got one. So if that is flawed and that is dysfunctioning, there's not much that you can do at all. And I see a lot of people, and one of the tells is that they're not sitting. It's not like they're in their 20s. They're older, but they've got a lot of red skin, and that is a sign. That's like a body's cry for help. They're not getting the nourishment or the nutrition that they need, and that's why they've got that sort of complexion, overweight, bad posture, don't move particularly well, lack of awareness as well. So it's all these things that assemble, and produce a decrease in the quality of your life. So it's very important to try and educate yourself now, because you don't want it to get to the point where it's like, for her, unfortunately, that was forced upon her just through really bad luck. Things got so bad that she absolutely had to make those changes, and as you said, found out the perfect formula through elimination and testing different things, eventually getting that right formula, but having the discipline to stick with it. And the benefits of that and her quality of life far outweigh anything that she's missing out on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. And going back to the car analogy, that if you treat your car like absolute rubbish, you never maintain it, you just over revving it all the time and, stick in the gears and whatever, that in the future that car is going to break down. That's going to cost you a lot of money, because, cars are expensive. If you put a little bit of time and effort into maintain it all the time, and you might spend the odd bit of money here and there to maintain it, but it's a small amount, and that car's going to keep running for a long time perfectly. And our body's the same. Just put a little bit of effort in now, or it's going to cost you a lot of effort and a lot of time in the future. And probably the main thing it's going to cost you is time off your life, because, like your car is going to maybe break down and have to go to scrap a lot earlier than it could have if you looked after it. And that's the same with our body. Your life, and even not necessarily even dying, a lot of people, their life is over by 50 or 60 because they're in such poor health. They might live to 80, but their life pretty much ended at 50, 60. That, that they have the whole thing about, people say, when you say that there's not really been great medical advancements in the last 50, 60, 100 years, really. And people say, well, life expectancy has gone up. It's hardly gone up. And really, has life expectancy gone up? Really? We're managing to keep people alive slightly longer, but look at the mess they're in. Is it even worth being alive for a few extra years like that? The human body, again, we've mentioned it before on the podcast, at a DNA level, genetic level, the human body should live to an average of 120 years. That's what humans genetically should live to. Scientists have done research on it.
Used to, I believe.
Yeah, they used to. And the Native Americans, they actually, there was a letter one of their chiefs wrote to, I don't know, one of the old American presidents. It could have been Lincoln or Franklin or someone. That wrote a famous letter to him saying that our elders used to live to 130. So then I think it was the French came with their bread, like their brioche and their bread, and all these other products, and they said that they started to die younger and younger, and now, you know, a lot of them don't even reach 100, because he said you've basically brought the diseases of diet, of the, well, to them it would have been Eastern, wouldn't it? Eastern diet, and that's the reality. That's the truth. People used to live to those old ages because they weren't eating all the rubbish we were, and they weren't eating 3 or 4 times a day. They would have been eating ancestrally, you know, eating meat, fat and protein, eating once, twice a day, maybe sometimes going a whole day without eating, and they were living a long time. And, you know, we've destroyed that, and now we think that if you struggle through to 85 years old, in the last 20 years, you're an absolute mess. You struggle to 85. You've done well. You've had a good life. No, that's not a good life. We should be living into our hundreds and still healthy. You know, there's within some of these tribes where they do still live like they used to, there's guys over 100 going out on the hunts. You know, imagine a Western 100, someone who lives to 100 in the Western society being able to go out on a hunt. You know, they'd take all week just to reach the beginning of the hunt. Like, there's no way. It's about, it's not just reaching an age, it's about having the quality of life at that age. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. I don't want to get to 60 and be such a physical wreck that I really can't do much, and I'm going to be basically sitting in a chair for the last 20 years of my life with the odd visit from grandchildren. There's a lot of people that's their life. And, you know, what's the point of living then? So I can't stress enough the importance for people to look after their health now with that long-term goal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you want to be, you know, playing with your grandchildren and chasing them around and, you know, enjoying that whole experience and being mobile, you know, when they do come along. And that won't happen unless, you know, you look after yourself now. I think just one more point on that. I think it was something I read about. I think some of the oldest living people in the world is somewhere in the Far East. I think maybe Okinawa or Japan or something. And it was something to do with, well, a lot of it was diet related. But it's one that I'll have to look more into. It was something to do with fermented vegetables, which is interesting, but also a lot of meat.
They eat a lot of pork.
Consumption. Yeah.
The Okinawans, yeah. And and they got
an incredible lifespan, one of the longest, and the obesity rates are very, very low there as well.
Yeah. The biggest factor they actually found to life expectancy was wealth. So a lot of these countries, because they've tried to make arguments that because Okinawa was actually one where they have the blue zones where they say, and they tried to say that these people live long and they didn't eat that much meat, they eat lots of vegetables, but they actually eat a lot of pork, they eat meat. But it's the quality of life. All of these places where they live long, people are well off and they have a good quality of life, and that's obviously, as we say, diet and fasting is a big factor, but the quality of life means they've got a better quality of food as well, and they're able to live better lives, and that is actually what helps with their lifespan. Because one of the other longest lifespans in the world is Hong Kong, and they are actually the highest consumer of meat per capita in the world as well. So that for any of them, who try to say it's plant-based ones and all these studies, it's like, no, they eat a lot of meat, but also it's a reasonably wealthy country. So we can't say that just that one thing means meat definitely makes you live longer. It could point towards it, but it can't mean a definite, obviously. Just like if there's a country where they don't eat much meat and live long, that it doesn't mean that not eating meat makes you live long. There's a lot of other factors to take into account. But as we can say from all the studies and the research and our history as humans, it's very obvious that eating an animal-based diet is going to be beneficial to you, because it's what we literally have developed and evolved on. The human race would not be alive today if we did not live on animal-based products. We would not have made it through ice ages and things like that. There's no way. So we would not be here if we weren't an animal-based species.
Yeah, absolutely. We've mentioned that several times before with a couple of other guests, that we've always been animal based. We always consumed animal based products, and that no settlement or group or generation in the history of human civilizations solely survived without meat. You know, like the Eskimos during the Ice Age, they couldn't grow vegetables. They consumed meat, and they lived long, prosperous lives. You know, that's what we did. But yeah, we'll have to. It's definitely an interesting topic um, regarding the connection between a location's wealth and their quality of life. That is something that we will delve into in a later episode, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because like you say, we talk a lot about diet, but there's a lot of parts of your life that you can optimize to really optimize your health, and finance ties into your stress levels, and also ties into how good your access to quality food is. So it all ties together. So yeah, definitely we could delve into some of that another time. We just quickly wanted to talk a little bit on increased intestinal permeability, because this is another of the big real reasons for health problems. Obviously, we know that an overconsumption of carbs and plant food is one of the reasons, and additives and chemicals in foods, and the other one is intestinal permeability. So again, I love to use analogies and make it simple for people. So the gut essentially has two roles. One is absorption, and one is non-absorption, like a barrier, essentially. So the gut, essentially, when stuff's in your gut, it's not necessarily in your body. So I like to use if you're flying on an aeroplane, and you fly to a different country. Let's say you fly to America. When you land in America, you're on American soil, you're in America, but you're not actually officially in America until you go through passport control. So in the airport is not classed as America. You're not in that country, and passport control will decide whether you can get in or not. So while food is physically inside your body, when it's in the gut, it's not actually in your body until it gets through your passport control, and your passport control is your gut. And that stops the things that you don't want to get through getting through, and it allows the things that you do want to get through. But a poor diet causes that to break down. It causes gaps to start to form in between the cells and the barrier, and you start to get things come through that shouldn't come through. And that leads into a lot of autoimmune issues, because you've now got foreign substances in the body. They've got through the guts, and now they're physically in the body, and your white blood cells and your immune system, they recognize them as foreign, and they're going to start attacking them, and they're going to attack them and anything that's similar to it. And that ends with your body attacking itself, which leads to autoimmune. So that is a real problem, and something that can only be fixed by having a really strict diet to completely fix it. Because even some things which a lot of people think are okay can still affect the intestinal permeability, and certain diets can slightly help with the symptoms but don't actually repair the diet. So you've got to be very specific with it, and it can cause a lot of issues. And it's obviously, most people know it as leaky gut. That's what it's caused as, like the basic thing. Like people say, oh, you've got some leaky gut, but people may not really understand what that is. But that's what it is your gut has been damaged, and it's allowing stuff into your body which shouldn't get into your body, and your body then attacks it as a defense mechanism, which is what it is meant to do. But that ends up with it attacking itself and causing issues. So I don't know if you've looked much into that subject or heard much about it.
Yeah, I have started to look into it, and all ties together with the diet and fasting, and how the processes within the body. There's a lot of processes that are taking place, and as you say, it is about it's a result of some people call it leaky gut syndrome, really. So that's where the holes and the gaps appear, and adversely affects the integrity of the intestinal barrier. So, you're getting bacteria and toxins leaking from the gut into the surrounding tissues, and then that causes inflammation in the gut, which is something that we spoke a lot about, and that leads to an array of symptoms and health problems. But it was interesting to read certain causes of it. That's something that an area that people are still developing knowledge on, but there's a lot of evidence to say that certain causes of the leaky gut are people who have got like joint pain, infectious diarrhea, gastric ulcers, inflammatory bowel diseases, other different types of allergies, respiratory infections. So there's a lot of the thyroid disorders, autoimmune diseases, so and especially obesity related metabolic diseases as well. So there's a lot of symptoms, and there's a lot of causes. There's a lot of causes of this, and it's about identifying them and preventing them from actually happening, because it can be reversed, but it takes time to reverse, and you're better off preventing the leaky gut and the causes of that to begin with, instead of allowing it to fester, and all ties in with intestinal permeability. So the gut's extremely important, and allowing the inflammation. The inflammation is a big concern, but interesting subject.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the issues we have is that from all of those, you outlined a lot of the illnesses there that are caused by it.
Yeah.
And not a single one of them will your doctor talk about intestinal permeability and addressing it. That they won't talk about it. And the thing they will do, what will they do? They'll prescribe you drugs. What do drugs do? Drugs further damage your intestinal permeability, because they're not something that's designed to be in your body. So they're essentially making it worse. So you've got things like, as you said, Crohn's and rheumatoid arthritis and thyroid. The drugs you're getting for them they're made to mask the symptoms, but they're actually making the cause even worse. When people are looking to heal this through diet, one of the main things they need to do is, as the diet is improving your gut intestinal permeability, you actually need to taper down the amount of drugs you're taking, because if you leave your drugs as what they were, it's going to be impossible for you to heal it. And also that's going to start to have a negative effect, because if you start to try and heal your body, you won't need as much of the drugs, and if you're still having them high, it's going to be an issue. But basically everything you're having is causing issues, and the health system is so broken. The reason why we need to educate people and we need to talk about this is because your doctor will not address any of that. They will give you drugs, which makes the problem worse. They won't tell you anything about diet, so you're still eating the stuff which is making it worse. So you're basically on some painkillers to try and cover your symptoms while doing two things which are going to make it worse, which is eating the wrong things, having your medication, and it's probably causing you stress, which is a third thing that will make it worse. So it's understanding these things. And there's, some of the subjects can get a bit controversial in spaces with people, because dairy is something that, even within, say, the keto and carnivore space, dairy is quite big. Now, some people are loving, raw milk, people drinking loads of raw milk and thinking it's great. Butter. I mean, I love butter, don't get me wrong, whacking a load of butter on. But, dairy is something that can be an issue. If someone's got bad intestinal permeability, dairy can give them issues, and dairy can prevent it from healing. And there's actually some research, it's only some, it's not completely definite, but there's some research which can actually link dairy proteins to people developing type 1 diabetes. So we need to be careful with things like this. You want to go as strict as possible with your diet, like Michaela Peterson had to. I imagine that her intestinal permeability was really bad because she'd been on loads of drugs since she was young as well, so that would have been a mess. So it's things that people need to understand, and understand that actually what your doctor is telling you and doing for you is probably making you even worse. That's why a lot of these conditions, as we always talk about, these conditions are curable. Type 2 diabetes, Crohn's, thyroid issues, and rheumatoid arthritis. They're all completely curable with diet and lifestyle. But if you go to the medical system, they will tell you that these diseases are incurable and they will gradually worsen over time. Nothing they can do, and the medication is to help you deal with it. That's what you'll be told, and that is how it is in the medical world. Yet we know they're fully curable, and it's terrible when you look at it just like that, black and white. You know, people are literally being poisoned essentially, and people don't understand it. And then you tell them they can be healed, and people think you're nuts.
Yeah.
So, like, we're trying to get the word out there. And as it's, you know, it's brilliant that you actually brought up the Michaela Peterson thing, because she's a prime example. She had these illnesses and these conditions that are incurable, and she cured them by just eating steak, salt, and drinking water. So there's your proof. It can work. And, you know, stop listening to your doctor and try something else, because there's people who've had these conditions for years. You know, type 2 diabetes, Crohn's, rheumatoid arthritis. People have these for years, and they're just putting up with it. And you're not, if what your doctor is doing for you is not making you any better, why not look elsewhere and try something else? Like, what's the harm?
Well, there is no harm. It's a lot of there's a lot of programming that stands between them and taking action and the right course of action. You know, and that again ties into the mindset and the belief system and the ability for somebody to unlearn and then relearn, which is very important. And we'll be talking more about that in the next couple of episodes, which we'll talk more about that then, that especially with the next couple of guests. That's going to be a real treat. But that's very much, you know, part of it. It's the ability for people to unlearn these things, what they've been told by the doctors, the medical professionals, you know, the system, the mainstream media, society. Unlearn that and relearn that you can actually take control and solve a lot of these issues yourself. And it's a lot more. It's not only just solving the problem, it's educating yourself so that you can enlighten other people as well in the future. And then that's how that's what makes, you know, a strong, healthy, vibrant society. You know, it's about somebody making a change and other people seeing that, and then, you know, pushing that positivity and that potential, if you will, that others can do the same. If they're not willing to undo what it is that they know, then it's very difficult for them to replace that with the new information. So I think that it all ties into, well, it ties into mindset, but also about just how bad somebody wants it or how bad their problems actually are, and whether they're willing to, you know, forego medication and replace it with self-care.
Yeah, absolutely. The first step is the hardest. The first step is always the hardest. And as you say, sometimes it's just, unfortunately, it's when they reach that point of desperation, that's when they take that first step. The first step's not easy. We had to take it. You know, I had to take that first step of, you know, sometimes it's just that first thing where you just like, this is just not right. And then you start to hear another point of view and you start thinking, well, that makes a lot more sense. You look into it and it's right. And then you kind of turn around and say, well, hold on a minute. This thing was a lie. What else is a lie? And you start, look at that. It's that first step. And that's the hardest thing. And I find that as well, you know, with people I speak to and with clients, the hardest bit is getting them just to try. Once they try, it's easy because you get results. You always get results. I don't know one person who has actually decided to give it a try and then has said, actually, no, you know what? I'm just going back to medication and doctors and what. No one goes back.
No one goes back. No,
it's that first step. And once you can get someone to take that first step, then they're off, because you keep getting those results, positive results, positive results. That's what I found. I'm sure that's what you found as well. The more I began to change, the better results I began to get. And then you're like, well, hold on a minute. I'm getting better and better results by doing the opposite of what I'm told. And then you just, you know, you begin to find it out. And that is what we're trying to get to people. Just try it. And you know, I can pretty much guarantee that you will not go back. And you will see the results. And that positive reinforcement is what they need. But it's that first step is the hardest. It always is, and the hardest part. And I even hear this from there's a lot of actual practicing doctors who are also using metabolic therapy and are trying to help people. I know we talk about doctors a lot being not great, but there are some who've actually looked into it themselves and found out everything's wrong that they were told at medical school, and they've relearned themselves, and they're helping people with metabolic therapy. But even as fully qualified doctors trying to offer metabolic therapy to people, they still said the hardest bit is still getting people to do it. They said there's still lots of people will turn it down and say, no, I'll just take the drugs. And that's with, fully qualified doctors trying to tell them that. So that's the hardest part. If we can get people to try, from there, you're plain sailing, because who's going to go back to that life once you've tried the other side? The grass really is greener on the other side on this occasion.
Oh, for sure. And I think, that it may be hard hitting to say, but for those who aren't willing to, re-educate themselves and try this different, the right diet, the right lifestyle, and, forgo the need for, medication and, medical intervention, if they want to just continue on the same path and expect, the pills and medication will be there, then maybe it's time to look at, a system where they'll have to pay for it, and pay over the odds for it, or certainly more than what they're paying now, in terms of the tax system. That's something that I think would shake a lot of people up. If I don't look after myself, then I'm literally going to have to pay for it, when, because science and biology is the laws of the universe. That is, there's no negotiation, when, diseases and infections, and, they come calling, you're either strong enough to deal with them or you're not. And, if you're not in the position for that and you need the medical intervention, then, that has to be, I feel that the people who continue to abuse their bodies, then that's fine, but they should be in a position where they should pay more for it, I feel. And that will I think, just putting that in place, people, the whole culture and will start to change, and people will start to take action, on looking after themselves, like, much like some people will never overspend because they don't want to become bankrupt, because that brings a whole set of different problems. So they're preventing it before it even starts by not overspending and living within their means. Same with your health. Put in the steps now, and you will feel the benefits. And before something that gets you that actually can't be treated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people, unfortunately, nowadays, people value their health too low, and they value their little comforts. We're lazy. People have got a poor mindset. They've got a weak mind. They're lazy. They want to be in their little comfortable space.
Yeah.
And they don't value their health high, like we said, until something really bad happens. And then suddenly they're like, why has this happened to me? Why do you think? You've treated your body like absolute rubbish, and now you've got a chronic disease. Why do you think it happened? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's people locked in the medical system. They've got a chronic disease. They've had it for years. They're taking the medication. It's getting worse and worse. It's insanity. You can cure it by going different methods and actually doing something that works. And unfortunately, people are blind to it. So that is what we're trying to do with the podcast, is to educate people and open people's eyes to that fact. You do not need to settle for a life of pain, a life of suffering, and a life of medication. You can heal yourself with diet and lifestyle. Of course, we've spoke a lot of diet. We're going to speak on lifestyle as well, on things, because lifestyle does tie into it. Like we said, obviously today, talking about, the life expectancy, lifestyle plays a part too. It's not 100% diet. There's sleep and there's stress and there's exercise and there's all these other things that tie into it. So optimizing all of them can completely rid you of these conditions. And that's what we're trying to tell people.
That's absolutely correct. And in terms of the optimization, it's about being consistent across all the disciplines, if you will, the sleep, how to handle stress, your exercise, your moving regularly, and having healthy habits, in terms of not engaging in degenerate activities, and having a healthy mind, having a goal, and having something to aim for, a project or whatever it is. That will all help complement the changes in your nutrition. And with the platform that we're building and the database we're building, we're going to show people exactly how to do that, and it will be absolutely life-changing.
Exactly. It's all about the education. That is what it's about. It's about educating people and teaching them. And as you say, that's what we're doing with the podcast, and also with the Health platform as well, which again, we'll link that in the bio. And it's just, educational material, again, like this, broken down into smaller parts, and just trying to make it simple to understand. We could try and get super sciencey and throw out all the big words and sciencey. And I watch a lot of podcasts where they talk about that, and it's brilliant because I learn so much. But we're trying to make it relatable to the everyday person. So that's why, I love to use analogies, and we try and simplify it. And that's what we're doing on the education platform, is trying to just make it real simple and basic, not too sciencey, but, with some science, that people understand the mechanism and that we're not just saying random things. But that's what we're doing. So if you're interested in that and learning some more, definitely sign up to that. And I'm just gonna finish what we're talking about with just what you were talking about there. Just reminded me, I saw a great quote today, actually, which I would just leave people with as kind of a finishing note, which is: people do not decide their futures, they decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. So that's what you're talking about there, forming those good habits. Like you don't just decide this is my future, you make the habits to get that future. And if you don't make those habits, you make bad habits, then your future will be bad. So I thought that was a powerful quote. We need to concentrate on making those good habits to have a good future.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one. That is very powerful, and there's literally so much that you can discuss about that quote alone, about habits, because it certainly is the habits that determine your destiny.
Yeah, 100%. And we might even speak a bit on that next week, to be honest, with the guest we've got on. That might be a good. We might even start the next week with that one. Finish with it this week and start with it next week with him. That's awesome. Thanks again, Barry, for being on. Another great conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed. Hopefully, everyone else has too, and hopefully you have.
My pleasure.
Awesome. We will be back again next week. As we say, we got a really special episode coming next week, which we're really excited about and looking forward to. So we'll see you all then. In the meantime, sign up to the platform if you're interested. Let's get educated and let's get optimal together. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into the show. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover on the podcast, or you'd like to appear on it, then please contact us at hwpoduk@gmail.com, on our website, which is healthwealthuk.com, or on any of our social medias, which are at hwpoduk. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share it with all your friends and family, and we will see you next week.